How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into 14P Fantasy. I am your host, Justin Wright. Today, we are talking Dynasty Risers from 2021. And if you're not sure what that means, we're talking guys that saw the biggest value bump from, August of 21 to today. So that takes into effect ADP, really is what we're looking at. We're looking at the biggest ADP risers, and it's worth keeping in mind. A guy that jumps 60 spots, from 160 to 100, probably saw less of a value bump than, say, JAMARR Chase, who jumped from like 21 up into the top 5. Jumping a lot of spots in late rounds is great, but I'm looking for those guys that had the biggest value rise, not only, just sheer, raw ADP numbers. So before we get into our 5 here, and again, this data is pulled from DLF, so if you're not following them, go check them out. But before we get into it, Patreon, guys, we have launched that Patreon page. We have started putting out our rookie profiles on YouTube. But if you are looking for our official rankings, our tiered rookie ranks, our tiered dynasty rankings, all of that kind of stuff, that will be available on Patreon. You can also just go and donate for $2 a month to help support the channel, help keep us moving here. All right. Now that we got all of that out of the way, also subscribe to the YouTube channel, duh. But now that we have it out of the way, let's get into it. According to DLF, using their value metrics, the biggest riser in ADP on the season was Elijah Mitchell. His ADP change, he went from pick 210, all the way up to, I'm looking at 25 and a half here. So 25, 26. He jumped 184 spots. And I mean, he had a depressed ADP for valid reasons. I was extremely high on him coming out of college, but he landed behind Trey Sermon, the third round running back that the 49ers had also taken. But week 1, week 2, it was obvious. All right, it's Elijah Mitchell. There's no one else. It doesn't matter. And again, he's only going to be 23. He is only 23. He'll be 24 next season. I am buying up Elijah Mitchell if someone is selling. If someone's looking to sell high on their third round draft pick and, I want to flip it to a first. Sure. I will give up a first round pick for Elijah Mitchell. I'll give up a mid first. I don't really care. I mean, once you miss out on the top 3 running backs in this class, I want Elijah Mitchell over every other running back available. So that means if I got to give up 106, 107 straight up for Elijah Mitchell, I'm going to do that in a heartbeat. I don't know if you can get that for him. Some owners may be adamant about, keeping the hidden gem they found. That's fine. But Elijah Mitchell jumped 184 spots in ADP. He is a beginning of the third round startup pick. Go get Elijah Mitchell. I mean, again, the price, it's going to cost you, but I think that price is going to be worth it. Number 2 on the year was his teammate, actually, Deebo Samuel. He went up 60 spots. And here's the thing. He went from pick 82 up to pick 22. He's now above Elijah Mitchell, or still above Elijah Mitchell, even with the crazy ADP jumps from both. He's only 25. I'm still torn on Deebo Samuel. The talent is undeniable. I mean, he is a phenomenal talent, but the usage is what concerns me. It's the low depth of target, a lot of snaps in the backfield, and obviously he can produce doing all of this. It's just consistency-wise, it's going to be interesting, especially with Trey Lance coming in next year. He looks to be taking over. Hopefully, he's taking over. Jimmy G is gone. So Deebo Samuel at 25 with Ayuk and Kittle and Elijah Mitchell now in a full-formed offense, he's always going to have a very, very relevant role, especially with Shanahan. But I do worry about the consistency for him to, put up top 10 wide receiver seasons. Now, I'm not selling Deebo. I'm not saying you have to get rid of him. I'm not actively buying. Really, Deebo's a hold for me. If you can get him for cheap, which I don't think you'll be able to, then sure, go and acquire him. But he's a guy I don't really have a strong opinion on one way or the other. What we know is he's talented. It's just going to come down to usage for his entire career. And if he gets forced into that kind of gadget role forever, you could see some low seasons, in the middle of his prime potentially. Moving on to number 3, Cooper Kupp At 28 years old, to see a wide receiver jump in ADP is shocking. It's unexpected. But with Cooper Kupp, it makes sense. Just he's not the normal 28-year-old wide receiver. He's about to have, with 17 games, the best receiving season in the history of football, most likely. He needs 12 catches and 130-something yards there. So Cooper Kupp, though, he went from pick 62 up to pick 17, going ahead of Deebo Samuel. And what you do with Cooper Kupp is obvious. If you are contending, I'm not selling high. I don't care. I'm going to ride that. I'm going to ride that train to the ground. He's arguably the wide receiver 1 in fantasy next year if Rodgers and Devontae Adams split. So I'm not trading him if I'm competing. But if I'm rebuilding, you have to move Cooper Kupp. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to hold a 28, soon to be 29-year-old wide receiver on a roster if you're not competing. The thing is, his ADP and his trade value are not going to match. You're not going to get what you should for, a middle of the second round wide receiver in a startup draft, because the age will always be the number. As soon as that thing hits 29, 30 years old, it doesn't matter how good they are. Their value immediately drops. So again, ideally I want 2 firsts, a mid and a 2023 probably is a great trade. I don't think you'll be able to get that unless you get someone that is in love with Cooper Kupp, and, contending teams should be. They should want to pay up. I just don't know if they will, and that's where using ADP for value can be tough, because trust me, ADP and real life value in a league are completely different things. Moving on to the complete polar opposite, we have JAMARR Chase. He only jumped 21 spots in ADP, but the spots he jumped were some of the most valuable in all of fantasy football, and that's why he comes in as DLF's 4th highest, ADP riser since the August ADP. And we're looking at, he was already a 3rd round pick. He was picked 27 in startup drafts. People were going, oh, that's too high. That's too early. Now he's picked 4. So he is the best rookie season of all time. He is only 21 years old. He is tied to Joe Burrow. He has a elite number 2, or a very, very good, maybe you don't want to put T in that category, a very, very good number 2 opposite him. So they have to respect both receivers. That opens things up for JAMARR Chase. I mean, you're not going to be able to trade for JAMARR Chase unless you overpay by a mile. I say that as someone who has JAMARR Chase in several leagues and is never, ever trading him, at least for the next several years. So JAMARR Chase, yes, he is now a 4th overall pick in startup drafts. What you have to give up to get him is probably not worth hemorrhaging, your entire future. I'm talking 3 first-round picks, maybe a wide receiver on top. And again, that's an insane thing to ask for. But when you have a 21-year-old wide receiver who's a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy already, what's the point of trading him? You're not selling high because he's 22. So there's no way to acquire him for a reasonable price. Just know that going in, if you're trying to trade for him, it's going to be damn near impossible. And to close us out, we have Jaylen Waddle. And again, he jumped 38 spots. Obviously, that is more spots, just on raw value than JAMARR Chase did. However, he's still only a 3rd round pick. He went from pick, when we find it here, 69, nice, to pick 30. So still a very highly touted wide receiver. Did not have the hype JAMARR Chase did coming in, even with draft capital. And that was just an oversight, I think, by the dynasty community. Health probably played a huge factor. But Jaylen Waddle is coming off of, again, a spectacular rookie wide receiver season. He is a 9 to 11 target type guy. He is Tua's number 1 option. And yeah, he kind of closed up the season with whatever, it was average. But Jaylen Waddle, only 23 years old, going to be 24 next year, deserves to probably be a top 10 wide receiver in Dynasty. If he isn't, he's right on the edge. We actually have a 5-minute debate video returning. If you're new to the channel, we do 5-minute debates on T. Higgins versus Jaylen Waddle in Dynasty. So check that out, dropping, I think, end of this week. But Jaylen Waddle, if you are trading for him, I want him over every single rookie wide receiver in this draft. That includes Treylon Burks. And that is because, as much as I think Treylon Burks is fantastic, I want the proven commodity in Jaylen Waddle. And the thing is, I don't think you give up 102, 103. I don't think that gets you Jaylen Waddle. So you probably have to overpay again because, again, guys, rookie wide receivers, no matter how good or bad they are, or no matter what their actual outcome should be, a rookie wide receiver that pops off is like gold in Dynasty. They're going to be overvalued by the person that rosters them. So if you're looking at Jaylen Waddle, no, it's going to cost you probably a high first-round pick, maybe a second, in 2023. So keep that in mind if you're going out to get Jaylen Waddle. I think that's something I would do, though. I am all in. I think he's going to have a great season. And again, I think he's the wide receiver 2 in this class over Devonta Smith. So if you can even make that swap 1-to-1, I don't know if you can anymore, but if you could, I would do it. All right, guys, that is all we have for you. Just breaking down the top 5 risers from 2021. We will break down the top 5 guys that lost the most value this season. I think I'm going to say fantasy relevant guys that lost the most value this season. So keep an eye out for that video either this week or next. All right. As always, guys, check out the Patreon page again. $2 if you want to donate, $5 if you want rankings. That's a monthly fee or a one-time fee if you just want to take it and get this version. That works too. But again, that stuff's going to be updated all season, all off season. It'll go into redraft and everything else. So keep an eye out for that as we continue to put stuff out on Patreon. Subscribe to the channel. Follow us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to YouTube. There it is. All right, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.